Hey, so welcome. Today we have a new Reddit post from G Steph, who often visits Cushing Library and gives us some tidbits from George R. R. Martin's archives. So we have a long draft of the A Feast for Crows prologue that George has archived. That is a copy that he sent to his editors, and he's written at the top of it that it was the oldest version of the prologue, still intact, the longest, and the one that was the closest to completion before I decided that it wasn't working. I guess this is why it takes wins a lot, because he writes a whole chapter and then is like, do you know what? It's not working. Bin. So let's get into it. I don't think this is the first time that G Steph has posted about this, but it's the first time I've covered it on the channel, so we're gonna cover. It starts off with dragons, Maribald insisted, over ale, which is different because we have Molander, however you like to call him. He is the one that says dragons as he snatched a withered apple off the ground and tossed it hand to hand. It then goes on in the draft version to say a nightingale was trilling in the olive tree, but only Pate was listening. Sweet, he thought, as sweet as my fair Rosie. We know Rosie from the prologue already. He drank the last of his ale. Gold for glass, he thought. He will give me gold for glass. The hooded man had made the dragon walk across his fingers to show he had the gold if Pate could get the glass. I am not a thief, he told himself, but the nightingale was trilling in the olive tree, and it almost seemed as if the little bird were singing, gold for glass, gold for glass, gold for glass. So already we don't have that in the published prologue, because he's saying, I'm sure he's saying gold for iron, because he just has to give over the iron key that is in Walgrave's lockbox. But this clearly states gold for glass. So what glass object is he going to be swapping over? A glass candle. I'm kind of glad that George changed it, because that is way too obvious. It kind of gives us the question that we have at the moment, that is, what does this hooded man want with the key? What does the key unlock? What is he going to take? Or, yeah. So the draft version, it is very similar to the published version then, where it goes, dragons. Armin the Acolyte looked down his nose at Maribald. Molander. He had the perfect nose for it, a long one that came to a sharp point. Has the ale gone to your head, lad? The last dragon died during the reign of the third Aegon. The last we know of. Like Pate, Maribald was a novice. So in the published version, we have them saying, I should like to see a dragon. And then talking about, you're too late for dragons, lad, is what Armin the Acolyte told Rune. It goes on to then speak about their description, and it says that the last one perished during the reign of Aegon III. So this is then another little bit that's like an extra. Like Pate, he was half drunk, but unlike Pate, he was a knight's son, big and loud. There are no mammoths in King's Landing either. Does that mean there are no mammoths? It was the black of night, and the torchlit terrace of the three-legged boar, not the old quill and tankard, was deserted. Save for them, the nightingale was trilling, the honey wine was chuckling, and Maribald was making too much noise. In the chapter we have, like the published prologue, it doesn't go on to say anything like that. But in the long version, he says, his father had taught him to be heard across a battlefield, he always said, but Pate blamed the ale for making him so loud. Ale and Maribald had become fast friends since his father's death in the Battle of the Blackwater. Even here in Oldtown, far from the fighting and safe behind its five-fold walls. And just nice little details, really. I don't think it mentions things like that in the original. The published. The war was always with them. The War of the Five Kings, the small folk called it. Though Archmaester Benedict was always pointing out that there had never actually been 5 kings at once, since Renly Baratheon had been slain before Balon Greyjoy crowned himself, which is something that matches the published prologue. Maribald was still talking when sailors off 7 different ships all tell the same tale. The tales are not the same, lad. Armin the Acolyte had forged 4 links of his maester's chain. He seemed to believe that gave him the right to call all novices lad, as if he were the archest of archmaesters. Dragons in Ashai, dragons in Karth, dragons in Marine, Dothraki dragons, dragons with 3 heads, each telling differs from the last. Only in details, Maribald argued stubbornly. Melander. All speak of dragons and a beautiful young queen, which is the same as we have published. We then go on to the little bit of difference where he says, gold for glass, thought Pate. But I am not a thief. The 3-legged boar, the old Quillen tankard, brewed a fearsomely strong ale, but he had drunk too much of it. Or more like, not enough. If he was not a thief, what was he? A novice of the Citadel, or just some bloody fool? He wished his friends would shut their mouths and let him think. It had been a mistake to visit the boar tonight. So we don't get any of that in the prologue, really, because he's more concerned with Rosie. Gold for glass, trilled the nightingale, gold for glass. Pate had spent all day amongst the ravens. The sweet song was a welcome respite from their harsh screams. The white ravens knew his name and would mutter, Pate, 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 at him. They were Wargrave's pride and knew it. The old man meant for them to eat him when he died, and Pate oft felt as if they wanted to eat him too. He gazed into his tankard, wondering how he might fill it up again. Another quart of fearsomely strong ale might give him the courage that he lacked, or else lazy Leo will despoil Rosie. So we do have another mention of Rosie. I should like to ride a dragon, declared Rune, which goes back to where we do have the published chapter. He was the youngest of the 5 companions, a chunky orphan boy 2 years shy of manhood. His village had been burned during the fighting in the Riverlands, and all his kin had been put to the sword. I should like that very much. I don't think we get that much description of Rune, do we? Yeah, I mean, we don't find out about his family. But Pate things, anyway. And I should like to go to sleep with Rosie's arms about me, Pate thought. But that won't happen either. The first quart of the 3-legged boar's fearsomely strong ale always made him jolly. A jolly character, eh? The second left him convinced he would conquer all the 7 kingdoms. But after 3, the gloom set in. And he'd drunk 6. Or was it 7? Alaris was paying, and Pate had not kept count. Our silver-handed Sphinx in his fat purse. Alaris had gone down to the Ring of Wisdom to face Archmaester Peristan, and won the right to forge his copper. His 3rd link, all within a year. Pate had been at the Citadel 4 years, and had no links. One night, after his 2nd tankard, he had boasted that he would not always be a novice. Too true, lazy Leo had mocked. One day, you'll soon be a former novice, herding swine. The jibe had stung, and Rosie's little laugh only made it hurt the more. I don't know if I'm mistaken, but I don't think that that's something that gets mentioned in the prologue that we have published. Like Rosie having a little laugh at Pate's expense before, so we don't really have a feeling that she's mocked him in the past. Anyway, twice he had believed himself ready. The first time he had gone before Archmaester Valen to demonstrate his knowledge of the stars. Instead, he learned why Vinegar Valen had earned that name. It took him 2 years to find the courage to try again. This time, he submitted himself to Archmaester Ebros with his soft and gentle hands. But Pate displayed even less mastery of the healing arts than that of the heavens, and Ebros' disappointment cut even deeper than Valen's barbs. That seems to match pretty much what we have. 4 years and still a pink neck. Pink neck is something that they call the ones without chains in the published chapter as well. Other men had forged their whole chain in less time, first link to last. Better men. So because he's a little bit slower than people who may have already had huge advantages in learning and being taught things before they go to the Citadel anyway. Because those people smash through their education and links. Um, yeah. Pate is feeling quite inadequate. This is something that we get in the published prologue, that Pate's history of going, before the Archmaesters to try and get his links, and he doesn't have any. But the fact that he's like better men, damn, that's sad. And probably would add more towards why he feels that he has to deceive his peers to get some gold, I guess. Anyway, Pate could hear Emma's laughter drifting through one of the shuttered windows above, mingled with the deeper voice of the man she was entertaining. Emma was the oldest of the serving wenches, 40 if she was a day, but still pretty, with as nice a pair of teats as any man could want. Armin said that she would take her staff in her mouth for a copper star, but Pate had never taken any of the serving wenches up the stairs. Whores could give a man a pox. The wenches at the Boar were cleaner than the dockside whores, to be sure. They asked 5 times as much, which kept away the sailors and all their queer diseases. Still, Pate did not care to take the risk. The pox would turn a man's cock black and make it fall right off, his mother used to say. This is all, stuff that we do not get in the published prologue. There is mention of Rosie's mother there. Is it her mother serving and running the inn? And who knows? For a dragon, she is selling her daughter's maidenhead, but this whole they really are just whores here, and we're here, it seems more of a pub than a whorehouse in the published chapter. Yeah. And this pox that they're talking about, that's not something that is mentioned either. At the Citadel, he'd learned that wasn't true, but it could still kill you dead or drive you mad. It had killed a crown prince once. Archmaester Peristan had said during his lecture on the reign of King Maekar. Pate was saving all his coin for Emma's daughter. Rosie had never gone with a man, so he knew that she was clean. He loved her hazel eyes and budding breasts, and the way she smiled when bringing him his ale. He would gladly have taken her up the stairs, but Emma had decreed that Rosie's maidenhead would cost a golden dragon. Pate had saved 9 silver stags and a pot of copper stars and pennies, but... You cannot know that there are no dragons, Armin. Maribald slammed his fist on the table so hard it made the tankards jump. Pate saw the nightingale flit away. For a moment he felt so sad that he thought he might weep. See, already in this unpublished prologue, it makes the group out to be very loud and boisterous and, I don't know, a bit more unlikable maybe. Anyway, the honey wine was thick with mist this morning. The Boar a little island of light. Beyond the torches, the distant beacon of the high tower floated in the damp of night like a hazy orange moon. It made him think of lazy Leo, who would steal Rosie's innocence, and probably leave her with the pox as well. If there was ever a man like to have the pox, it had to be lazy Leo. See, Leo isn't made out to be this, I was gonna say ladies' man, but if he's paying for it, I mean, we know he's from higher birth. But yeah, he's not made out to be this type of character in the published prologue. Stories told by sailors, Armin said. Sailors, Maribald. Go down to the docks and you'll find sailors who will say they slept with mermaids, and others who spent a year in the belly of a leviathan, or saw the sun sink into the sea and make it boil. Even a novice should know that there has never been such a thing as a 3-headed dragon. These things are pretty much the same anyway. Elara seemed amused by that. He often seemed amused, as if he knew some secret his friends were all too thick to see. So in the published chapter, it said, The Sphinx was always smiling, as if he knew some secret jape. It gave him a wicked look that went well with his pointed chin, widow's peak, and dense mat of close-cropped jet black curls. I mean, it does go on to give further description of Alaris in the published chapter. But let's go back to the draft one. The rest of them drank ale, but the Sphinx preferred the strange, sweetest wine of the summer isles. There are no living sphinxes either, he announced in his soft southern drawl. Yet, here I sit. So in the published one, we have the description first of it had been Lazy Leo who dubbed Alaris the Sphinx. A sphinx is a bit of this, a bit of that, a human face, the body of a lion, the wings of a hawk. Alaris was the same. His father was a Dornishman, his mother a black-skinned summer islander. His own skin was as dark as teak, and like the green marble sphinxes that flanked the Citadel's main gates, Alaris had eyes of onyx. "Is that a riddle?" asked Armin, frowning. Sphinxes were supposed to speak in riddles, when they spoke at all. It had been Lazy Leo who had given Alaris that name. A sphinx is a bit of this, a bit of that, a human face with the body of a lion, the wings of a hawk. No such beast had walked the earth since the doom engulfed Valyria. That's not something that's mentioned in the other one. But 2 green marble sphinxes flanked the entrance to the Citadel, which is mentioned in the published one. Watching all who passed with the eyes of onyx, Alaris had onyx eyes as well, and a stillness that reminded Pate of a cat waiting for his prey. It does mention in the published one about the onyx eye, but not about the cat-like thing. Interesting. He too was a bit of this, a bit of that. His father had been a Dornishman, his mother a woman of the Summer Isles, with skin as black as ink. His own skin was more like teak, but still darker than any proper Dornishman's. Oh my god, sorry. The next sentence. We're glad this was taken out. A mongrel's skin, thought Pate, whose face was pale as paste and prone to burn and peel. Yet it seemed a comely colour, beneath that cap of close-cropped black curls and the widow's peak that made Alaris look so wicked, so that does match the description we have in the published chapter. The serving wenches doted on his dimpled chin, smooth cheeks, and wry smile. No riddle, declared the Sphinx, just simple sense. No dragon has ever had 3 heads, save on the banners of the kings. This wonder in the east must have to do with some surviving shoot of House Targaryen. Maribald frowned drunkenly. How can you frown drunkenly? Big as he was, he had no head for ale. The Targaryens are dead. The Beggar King is dead, said the Sphinx, but he had a sister, born on Dragonstone after their father's murder. There's your Dragon Queen, Daenerys Stormborn she was called. So in the published one, it says, no dragon has ever had 3 heads, except on shields and banners, Armin the Acolyte said firmly. That was heraldic charge, no more. He goes on to say, furthermore, the Targaryens are all dead. Furthering the conversation in that direction, which then goes on to say, not all, the Beggar King had a sister, I thought, blah, blah, blah. Pate knew that the Mad King once had a little daughter, but he'd thought he'd heard that her head was smashed against a wall. There was no profit in arguing with the Sphinx, though. He has 3 links, and I have none. Alaris, he said, my tankard's dry. Shall we give a call for Rosie and have another round? Rosie has gone to sleep, said Alaris. And we should do the same. Dawn is nigh, and we all have duties on the morrow. So, in the published chapter, it's Armin who declares, we've drunk enough, morn will be upon us sooner than we'd like, and Archmaester Ebros will be speaking on the properties of urine. Those who mean to forge a silver link would do well not to miss his talk. And so, people start drifting off, and Pate is left with Leo, who then asks about Rosie. How is our lovely Rosie, pray? And Pate is the one that says, she's sleeping. Naked, I don't doubt, Leo grinned. Do you think she's truly worth a dragon? One day, I suppose I must find out. Like, this is the first point that he's, supposedly going for Rosie. Back to the draft version. Duties. Pate's duties involved caring for Archmaester Walgrave, who had forgotten more of Ravencraft than most maesters ever knew. A great man once. Only now his robes concealed sword small clothes oft as not, and half a year ago some acolytes found him weeping in the library, unable to find his way back to his chambers. Pate had counted himself lucky when Walgrave took him on to help with the ravens. He did that, but he fetched the old man's meals as well, swept out his chambers, dressed him every morning, bathed him once a fortnight. So these things match what we have published. He got no wages, but a man could eat well on Archmaester's leavings. Pate had hoped for more, but Walgrave could not give him his black iron. The old man was an Archmaester only by courtesy. Maester Gorman sat below the Iron Mask in his stead. So, do you think they have some kind of assemblies where all the Archmaesters gather around and the novices are there and they have a mask that they sit below? Or is that like beneath the mask, like below the mask in that way? Anyway, Maester Gorman sat below the Iron Mask in his stead, and Gorman had once dragged Pate before the Seneschal, accusing him of theft. I could drink another ale as well, Maribold was saying to the Sphinx. One more, for the walk back home. 1 or 2 or 10, have as many as you like, Hilaris told the knight's son. Just don't look to me to pay for them. Bah, a lord's son should be open-handed. The Sphinx laugh was music. My hands are open, but my purse is closed, and I am no lord's son. I have told you. Okay, so they don't really question that in the published chapter. Maribold is seeing dancing dragons, said Armand the Acolyte. I fear the lad's had enough ale for one night. He has, a voice behind them said, but I haven't. Mother have mercy, but I am almost sober. Lazy Leo was slouching beneath the olive tree, ash-blonde hair falling down across his eyes. Most novices wore rough-spun robe of undyed wool. Leo wore satin striped in green and white, and black silk half-caped pinned at his shoulder by a rose of jade and gold. The wine he dribbled down his front had been a robust red, however, judging from the colour of the spots. This I can tell is like his original version's got typo in it. Run and fetch a serving wench, Pate, he commanded. Alaris, you may have the honour of giving her some coin. We were just leaving, said Pate. Were you? Leo smiled. Pig boys should not lie to their betters. It is discourteous, and like to get them whipped. I am no pig boy. Spotted Pate the pig boy was a hero of 1,000 ribald songs and stories, a good-hearted, empty-headed lout, who somehow always managed to get the best of fat lordlings, haughty knights, and pompous septons who beset him. In the stories, his stupidity would turn out to have been some sort of uncouth cunning. Usually the tales ended with Spotted Pate sitting on a lord's high seat or bedding some knight's daughter, but the Pates of real world never fared so well. Pate sometimes thought his mother must have hated him to have given him that name, which matches what we've got. Lazy Leo took a seat beside him. Pity, a poor novice. I have a raging thirst, and I heard the Dornishman was buying. He was, drawled Alaris, but only for his friends. Buy your own ale. Your silver is as good as mine. Better, said Leo, but I've lost mine. The tiles turned against me down at the Checkered Hazard, and of course I had to dine. Suckling pig in plum sauce, stuffed with chestnuts and white truffles. And what did you lab, Hads? When no one answered him, he shrugged. I'm certain it was billing. You see my sad dilemma, Sphinx, so order me a cup of arbor gold. Best not, my lord, Armand cautioned Leo. Morn will be here soon. Archmaester Ebers will be speaking on the properties of Urin. You do not wish to be late. Peristan says the world is 100,000 years old. If I am an hour late for the piss tasting, what is that but the flicker of an eye? Lazy Leo gave a shrug. All your shouting woke poor Rosie up, you know. A pretty thing, though I wonder if any maiden's flower can be worth a golden dragon. Will hers be sweeter than the next whore's? One day I must find out. Okay, so the Periston saying the world is 100,000 years old, that does come from Lazy Leo, who is supposedly still supposed to be basically in detention in the Citadel when he's introduced to the group in the published chapter. And he's like, well, what's a few more days? You know, Archmaester Peristan says the world is 100,000 years old. In this, it's, well, what's an hour late to a lecture when Archmaester so-and-so says that. But also, calling Rosie a whore, like, that's just rude. What was I saying? Oh yes, dragons. Sir Hotfoot has the right of it this once. The mage has been prowling the docks, visiting every ship come in from the east, asking queer questions in queer tongues. He says 3 dragons have hatched in Karth, by the Jade Gates. 3, said Rune, astonished. Leo patted his hands. More than 2 and less than 4. I would not try for my golden link just yet if I were you. If I hit him in the mouth with my tankard, I could knock out half his teeth. Which is something that we get in the published chapter, I'm sure, anyway. But if he did, Leo would soon have him rotting in a dungeon underneath the high tower. The rectors who kept order at the Citadel were blind and deaf to Leo's wastrel ways, and even the cobblestone guards turned their backs when he ventured out into the city to wreak havoc. I don't think we have mention of cobblestone guards in the published chapter. That's quite interesting, just a little bit of Oldtown lore. Anyway, Lazy Leo was more than just another novice. He was the cherished younger son of Sir Morin Tyrell, commander of the city watch of Oldtown, and his cousin Mace was Lord of Highgarden, father to the widowed queen and liege lord to aged Leighton Hightower, who numbered protector of the Citadel and shield of the city amongst his lengthy string of titles. Leo was even kin to Maester Gorman, which might account for why Gorman had no use for Pate. All the stuff about Lazy Leo's family is word for word what we have published. Then, this is no joke. Armin the Acolyte did not dare look down his nose at a Tyrell. 3 dragons, you are certain? Not me, said Lazy Leo. The mage. Targaryen dragons, said Alaris. I'd love to see the face of Tywin Lannister when he hears. That is not something that we get in the published one. Anyway, people naming like Tywin Lannister. I expect our hand has heard already, said Leo, yawning. King's Landing is a port as well. Their harbour is still clogged with burned and broken wrecks from the battle on the Blackwater, Alaris pointed out. Most trade has shifted north, to Duskendale and Oldtown. No matter. Varys has whisperers everywhere. Lannister will know. I'd say our pig boy has a better chance of rising to Grand Maester than this Dragon Queen does of living out the year. See, we don't get that in the published one, and it gives the view of like, okay, so these people in Oldtown know how King's Landing is doing post this big battle. They know of characters like Tywin and apparently Varys too. I would have thought that would have been more of a hush-hush role. Like, I know that these group of people are in a educational setting and would know who's in what royal or political role. But it just feels weird that they're sat around talking about like, oh, I can't wait to see the face on Tywin when, here's this. And Varys, I'm glad they took that a little bit out. Okay, so we are just under halfway now and my voice is going. The video is getting a little bit long, so we're going to cover the next half in a part 2 video. Let me know what you think of the unpublished draft version of this prologue so far. I kind of like it and I'm glad that it was refined. But I like the detail of like the cobblestone guards and things like that. Let me know what you thought. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time, and I'll see you for part 2. Cheerio.